Just out here trying to hit record. Alright. What's up, motherfuckers? This is second tiny cast or whatever I'm gonna come up with for these. Basically ones that are about 20 minutes or less, maybe longer than 20 depending on what I'm talking about. I know the one that I recorded with my friends is still pending. In all honesty, because I'm a lazy motherfucker, it was my birthday last week, so I took a week off of work, and first time I've ever had time off of work that I've asked for. It felt a little weird, but I took that time to kind of just lounge and think about things and decide what goals I'm setting for myself to accomplish over the next year, because my birthday marks about the time that I moved out of my parents' house. So for me, that's kind of a reflection period, I guess it'll always be now, of how much have you grown and how much do you want to grow. So second podcast that I did with my buddies will be edited and uploaded this week. I know I have to work around my work schedule and everything because I'm back to work now, but that one will definitely be up by the weekend. But today I kind of figured, as I get back to the grind and things start changing a little bit, I would record and edit one real quick just so you could have something. I could have something out. And today the thing I kind of wanted to bring up is insecurity and just lack of self-worth and minimal self-esteem and shit like that, because a lot of that stuff I've on some level been aware of some of it since I was a kid. Like in terms of other people, I've always tried to be very aware of how other people feel about themselves based on how they perceive themselves socially, how the people carry themselves and everything. Like forever I've kind of been like that. And only in the past 2-3 years have I really started figuring out how I feel about me and how I carry myself and how I really feel about how I do, and working on myself more than I work on focusing on other people. But no, for a long time, I would say about midpoint of fourth grade, when I had to move for the first time and go to a new school, make new friends. The father figure I was used to having around wasn't around. That was about the time I started kind of realizing that he wasn't really a great father figure. I didn't want to accept the fact, but there were little cues that thinking back on it, I knew better, but I just didn't want to accept it. So just these couple of things started kind of piling up on me, and I was probably, I was fourth grade, so around 8 or 9, probably about 9, and these things just really weighed heavy on me, and I kind of just decided, I basically stopped growing for a while, mentally. And some of it kind of couldn't be helped because it was just natural progression, but in terms of my self-worth and self-esteem and that kind of stuff, I really, honestly, didn't start growing again until about my senior year of high school. Around the time I got my job is when I started actually progressing in my self-value and everything else again. Because for a long time, I remember, it's a very distinctive feeling. It's one that, at least as far as I know now, I'm as far away from as I can be, and I always work to stay away from. But it was just this feeling that I didn't belong, or that I didn't really have much reason to be here, and just kind of a depressing feeling overall. It was almost like I was here, but I wasn't going anywhere, I wasn't doing anything, so I was like, I'll just kind of cruise through life, I guess, because I don't have a dad, and my brother annoys me, and I have no friends anymore, so fuck it, I quit. And I made new friends and everything, and the whole father figure thing resolved itself when I was about 15, 16, when I realized I finally had a dad. That's when that finally got handled, and all that stuff, but just that was the time when I quit on myself. Like, legitimately, I was like, fuck it. I mean, because it was hard for me at that time, just having to make new friends when I'd gotten so comfortable with my current friends. And on top of just, I was always getting grounded because I wasn't doing schoolwork, and I wasn't doing schoolwork because I was depressed. I was like, I don't want to do this shit. It's an odd time to remember for me, because now I have so much more perspective that I can reflect back on it with, that I'm realizing certain things about myself that kind of new revelations. Like, just realizing that I was so insecure and kind of unstable at that time, and I was for a long time. It's freaky to think about, because now I'm constantly trying to be a better version of myself and everything, and always trying to improve, always trying to find things to tackle and challenge and just things to get done. But at that time, it was kind of just like, I don't want to do anything because there's no point. Why? I don't have a dad. My friends are gone. My mom annoys the hell out of me. And my brother, I always got to watch him. I always got to stay in and watch him. I can't be me. I can't just sit here and play video games. I don't want to do homework. I just want to hang out, game, and just generally zone out because I don't want to be here. That was basically how I was feeling. And then senior year, when I got my job and started working and making money, that's when I started kind of really working on my self-value. And then moving out a year ago, that was probably the biggest time of growth for me was the past year. That was the most growth I think I've ever seen in a year's time. Because I was actually honestly looking at myself that entire time going, what do you need to fix? What do you need to improve? What can you do better? What do you need to tackle next? What can you accomplish next? And granted, no stretch saying that I'm perfect at it. I'm a lazy 19-year-old dude. Sometimes I lounge, but overall, I'm in a way better place now than I had been for about 7 years or so. It was about a solid 7-year stretch of just depression. It led to me, my sophomore year of high school, I briefly contemplated suicide because I was still stuck in that zone of just, why am I here? If I were to just disappear, no one would miss me. I don't do homework, I don't, just depressing shit like that. But it all ultimately tied into my self-worth and how I felt about me, which I think a lot of people don't actively try to do, which can lead to a lot of different problems in terms of our growth and everything else, which I know because it affected me for a long fucking time. And it's affected a lot of members of my family and everything else. It's your own perception of you. You really do put that out into the world, and you basically get back what you put out. So if you put out minimum confidence, you're gonna get very little back because you don't seem like you're after much. But if you seem like you really want to get shit done, things are gonna get done because that's what you're trying to do, And I don't know, just it's odd to think about the fact that there's a lot of grown people I run into, like full-grown adults who have mortgages and other crazy shit they have to handle, responsibilities they take care of and that they maintain and everything, who don't value themselves. Fucking everywhere. They're fucking everywhere. I see them all the goddamn time. People who, in conversation, will play themselves up like if you're a dude. One of the more common ones, which I think is a whole conversation in itself to be had, is just the perception that all dudes want is sex. And it depends on the guy. It all depends on the guy. People like to generalize, but there's all kinds of different people, different shapes and sizes and shit. And in terms of guys working mentally, on some levels we all kind of follow the same cues, but on others we're people just like fucking women are. Like we can't be boxed up in the way that women can't be boxed up, and other kinds of people can't be boxed up. We all work differently, but no, I think a lot of guys who will kind of try to pursue a ton of girls, that is bolstering their ego and their self-confidence, and they're feeling really good about themselves because they're getting more girls than this dude or all of their friends or whatever the case is. But then ultimately, when that's all kind of said and done, the minute you stop getting girls, you feel like shit. And you get depressed because there's nothing going on in your life anymore. You have nothing to be proud of when you stop getting girls, if that's all that you're focused on is getting girls. If that ever comes to a stop, you're done. And that's something that I feel like for a lot of guys is just kind of like, focus on you, man. Better yourself. Become a better version of you than who you were yesterday. And do that every day, and soon, like 2 years will have gone by, and you'll look back and go, holy fuck, I am so much better off now than I was then. And granted, you can still get girls in that time and everything and do all that shit. I'm not saying you gotta put a stop to that kind of stuff to be able to do that, but just kind of leaning less towards ego and more towards confidence is one of the big things. That's one of the largest functions in it, is less ego, more legitimate confidence. Like, I'm now confident in my ability to adapt to new situations. because as a kid I had to do it all the time, and coming into the adult world I do it a couple times a month. There's shit that comes up where it's like, oh, I gotta handle that, okay. So now I'm confident in my ability to pivot and adapt to different, Jesus, just had like a fucking, just had a stroke. I don't know what the fuck that was. No, but I've now learned basically how to adapt to different things and just be comfortable in being very flexible with things in terms of life and all kinds of different stuff. And I know I'm way better off because of it. And I look at a lot of other people and I see some of the same patterns that I've had and some of the same weird patterns I've been seeing in people for a long time in terms of their self-worth and self-esteem. You know, a guy who's always bragging about all the money that he has, he's only doing that because that's all he has to go on. That's all that's driving him forward. That's all that motivates him is money. Money is a great motivation because it leads to comfort and you can get yourself things and everything else, but it's not nearly everything. You know, you should be everything. You yourself should be your ultimate goal. And guys who always talk about the money that they get, it's like, awesome, you're making money, you're doing shit, but what else, man? What the fuck else are you doing? It's like, is that really all you're focusing on? Because if so, you've got a little bit of work to do. Because the minute you slow down and you get off your grind, you're gonna feel shitty and you're gonna have to get right back on it and you're gonna have to get right back to bragging. The minute you run into a dude who makes more money than you and doesn't talk about it, it's gonna fucking bother you. It's gonna eat you up for a bit because you're gonna keep looking at the guy going like, how is he so calm and casual? You know, he's out here getting paid. He should be playing himself up a lot more. You know, shit like that is kind of the basis of minimal self-esteem. And self-esteem is something that a lot of people talk about, but they all come into it with ego instead of actually trying to have a dialogue about it, you know? Like, people will play themselves up and say that they're better off than person X, rather than saying, you know, I've gotten to where I'm at now because I put in the work to get here. Person X is here for reasons, and if they do pretty much the same kind of work that I've been doing, they can become a much better person because of it. People don't think about it in those terms. So many people purely think, I'm doing better than them, and that makes them feel good. That's a part of what makes a lot of people feel good. Like, way more people than you would think this way. And I know that for a fucking fact because I used to think this way. I still do occasionally, but on a much lesser scale than I used to, because I eventually kind of just realized, like, okay, I make more money than them. Do I feel good about me? If the answer is no, then why should it matter that I make more money than them? If I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, what the fuck is the point? What do I have to brag about? The money in my pocket, it helps. In the real world, it makes a difference. But at the end of the day, if I lost all the money, I'd just be stuck with me. And if I'm not comfortable with me, what the fuck am I doing? You know? Like, dialogues like that, people don't like to have with themselves. And I think more people need to start having those actual dialogues. And they need to have them with their kids, too. Because a kid goes through some of those same motions just early on. And at some point, there's like a switch that gets flipped, I'd like to think, where your focus becomes on X amount of things, depending on the kid. But if you're focused on very superficial things, like the shoes that you're wearing, or like all this different shit that you have, you know, the material things that have nothing to do with who you are as a person, they're gonna pursue that for the rest of their lives if you let them. If you don't slow them down and go, don't focus on that so much. And you have an actual conversation with them and talk them down from that high horse that so many people get on. So many people get on this high horse of the couple of things that they do that they're better at than you. That is the basis for all of their confidence. All their ego comes from that, everything. It's their source of everything. Their source of motivation is that they're better than you at something. And the minute you show them that you don't care, or that you kind of stay in your own lane and do your own thing and don't really give them the time of day, that deeply bothers them. That bothers those kinds of people. They internalize all of that. They use that as a method to kind of push themselves forward and keep trying to be better than everybody else. Like, this shit is seriously like a massive fucking issue. And I'm only aware of it because I've had to grow out of it for the past year, and I'm still working on growing out of a lot of it. But so many people don't talk about it. So many people refuse to address that they have a massive ego, or that they can't be alone with their own thoughts because they don't know who they are and they're uncomfortable with themselves. They So many people have things that have happened to them that have traumatized them that they're not willing to confront and deal with. So many people act like they're fine and decide, this is where I stop growing, and they become stagnant. They stop. When there are so many things that we all have to work on constantly, it never stops. You never stop growing. You're never actually done. And so many people think they're fucking done as soon as they have their little job and they're making money and everything. They got a family, they got a house, they got a mortgage, they're behaving like an adult. All this shit. So many people think that they're done when they hit that point. And, you know, there's a lot of pride to be taken in those things. That's a given. That type of shit is the shit that you take pride in for yourself for doing. And you feel good about it. But at the end of the day, if you can't tell yourself at the end of a year, I am now so much better off than I was a year ago. Now I want to work on myself more this year and see how much better off I can be next year. People don't like to do that. We're not taught to really work on ourselves much. We're not taught that. We're taught to be better than other people, to be competitive, you know, like all this bullshit that really will not help you as a person in the long run. We're taught that kind of bullshit. And the shit disturbs me because I see it everywhere. Every fucking where I go, I see it. And there are people, granted, who very much work on themselves regularly, and we can have dialogues and conversations about things and kind of bolster each other's growth a little bit. But ultimately, people will brag about, I'm better at my job than this person. And it's like, okay, good. Be proud that you're better than somebody else. But you're not that big of a deal because you're better than somebody else. Everybody is better than somebody else at something. You are not in a better position than everybody else around you because you're better than someone at something. That makes no fucking sense. You're not doing yourself any favors in thinking that way. Shit like that, people don't like to talk about or think about. We're not taught to think about that shit. And having learned both directly from my family and friends and indirectly from just paying attention and trying to better myself over the past 2 years, I've noticed a lot of this kind of shit. And I think a lot of people really need to work on themselves and just try to be better versions of themselves constantly, and always double checking themselves and, you know, kind of trying to grow out of things that they know they're stuck in and dig themselves out of holes they've been in forever. All that kind of shit. People need to do that because then we become better people. And when we're better people, we have more to give to the world. And if you have nothing to give to the world, you're wasting your and everybody else's time. And there is a fuckload of people who are wasting each other's time. It's depressing to talk to somebody who you care about a lot and to hear them say all of these things that you know are just ego. You know it's all ego at the end of the day. And you're just kind of sitting back and you're going, I feel bad for you, because you're like you're so lost in your ego that you're incapable of really looking in the mirror, like honestly looking in the mirror. The analogy I've come up with for, you know, insecurity and self-esteem and everything, which I feel is effective, is it's like you're running on a path and it's like a 3-path kind of pattern. One on the left, it's empty, you're in the middle, and everybody else is on your right. And it's, a lot of people treat it like a race, this path of life. A lot of people will look to their right at everybody else who's getting ahead of them, and they think there's supposed to be some kind of finish line toward the end, so they're like, I want to get there faster, I'm going to be better than them. So, you know, you run a little harder, you get better than other people, you're further ahead than them, and you feel good. But then a fuckload of people come past you at some point, and then you sit back and you go, oh, I guess I'm not as good as I thought I was. And you feel bad, you feel shitty, you don't feel like you have a purpose anymore. You're lost, you're stuck, because you're not being better than other people. But the funny thing about it is you're looking to your right at these people who are all running, and they're looking to their left. And you think that they're all looking at you, and you feel as though they're all putting this pressure on you to be better than them, and to challenge them, and to be greater than they are. But if you ever take the time to actually look to your left, you see that that path is a mirror version of you. And you get to really get a look at yourself, you know, your expressions, your body, your stature, everything about you, you can see in full force if you look left. Everybody to your right is part of this constant cycle of these repeating roads. Everyone who's looking to their right is seeing everybody else looking at themselves and saying, I'm going to be better than I am now. And they're working towards being better than who they are. And they look over and they see that they're improving and they feel good. They smile. They're feeling great. And they don't have anybody else running with them. They just see themselves. Everybody else thinks they're running in a race against other people, but there are a lot of people too who are just racing against themselves. And that's one of the things about life that I've really learned in terms of security and your self-esteem and everything. You race yourself. You don't race other people. You chase goals that you want to achieve because you know if you achieve those goals, on the way, you will become better as a person. You will improve mentally. You're not trying to be better than other people. You're trying to be better than you. That's one of the craziest things about life that I've definitely gotten perspective on in the past year, is in terms of our self-worth and everything. You're not going up against others. You're going up against you. And that's, at the end of the day, no one else is on that path with you. It's just you. And do you want to run a race that you're never going to win? Or do you want to constantly try and beat yourself? Because at least beating yourself is a feasible goal. And it's one that you can actually achieve.